Former Republican Utah Congressman and Fox Business contributor Jason Chaffetz. Good to see you, Congressman. So you just heard Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer flip-flopping on this policy. I mean, is using a government shutdown to enact policy to fight over policy, is that ever a good thing, especially a fight over illegal immigrants?
Well, if you're going to fight over something, but the core of this, they didn't oppose anything in the actual bill, and there's no real actual bill or insertion of an amendment that they try to have. And so, look, Republicans will just keep playing their own words from Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and show the contrast. And I think America will wake up in November and say, do we really want these people in charge? I mean, they're calling, you know, what they said about the tax plan Armageddon, that it was just going to be awful, that it was just, you know, pittance that they were giving to people. And this shutdown, it'll be in the long term a blip in the map. But for what? I mean, why do you play with troops and their families and their paychecks and children's health care with states trying to figure out how to fund it? They got nothing. Yeah, other than they tried to make a point.
And they looked like they were favoring illegal immigrants over the soldiers. I mean, here's the question, Congressman. Do Democrats really want an immigration deal? That debate's supposed to open on February 8th. I mean, the midterms are around the corner. The narrative is the GOP are racist haters. Do they prefer the rhetoric and no deal do the Democrats want that instead of no deal that they'll have to hold up to, you know, their voters in the midterms about immigration reform, about DACA?
Well, there are a lot of us that believe that Democrats actually love the issue, but they don't necessarily want to solve the problem. If they did, they had 8 years under Barack Obama, but there was no bill that they got behind in 8 years. And to what they kept saying about the Republicans, remember, Barack Obama, when he first went into office, had the House and Senate and the presidency. Not only did they not introduce a bill, they didn't move it through committee. They didn't do any of that. And I think what they're looking at is Donald Trump has been talking about fixing DACA. And you do have a bill that is moving to the floor of the House. And that's got to scare the Democrats to death, because I think you'll find that Republicans do want a solution for these so-called DACA kids. And now that the Republicans are in control, they're on the verge of actually doing it.
Yeah, and, you know, it opens up another nasty fight that the Republicans are trying to take on, that Democrats are trying to set aside. It has to do with chain migration, family immigration visas, and the lottery visa system, right?
It's exactly why Donald Trump became the Republican nominee, and I think ultimately why he became the president of the United States. I think most Americans recognize you have to secure the border, lock down the border, get rid of the rewards and incentives. But at the same time, you can deal with the DACA kids, not deport them all, but I wouldn't put them on a pathway to citizenship. They don't necessarily need to stay in this country. They don't need amnesty.
There's talk about green.
So that's the balance that I think the country wants.
Yeah, there's talk about green cards. They'd have to. The DACA kids would have to renew their green cards every 3 years.